Red warning lights flashed along the ceiling of the orbital fortress Tessera Gate. Metal groaned somewhere deep inside the structure. The hull had been built a century earlier, and every impact shook it like an old war drum. Captain Aaron Holt stood on the observation deck with his hands behind his back. Through the thick glass, Earth hung below, half covered in gray clouds and burning cities. The planet looked fragile, like glass ready to break. He could see the enemy fleet in the distance. Hundreds of bright dots lined up in a tight formation. The outer Unity ships floated in silence, sharp-edged and smooth, black like knife blades. Holt knew their routines. He had studied every recorded maneuver from the last war, but it still hurt to see them waiting, certain of their victory. Lieutenant Nora Kane joined him. Her face was pale under the red light. "All negotiation channels are quiet, sir." No response. "They're not coming to talk," Holt said. "I know," she hesitated. "We still have families down there." Her words landed heavier than the alarms. Holt kept his eyes on the horizon. "Then every shot we fire has to count." The communications pit below buzzed with half-heard voices. Young techs reported power drops. Another team shouted about hull stress. The engines were centuries old, patched with spare parts from forgotten wars. A message broke over the main screen. The face of Admiral Cara Dorn filled the room. She wore the silver armor of the Unity and smiled with cold precision. "Earth still clings to its dead code," she said. "You could join us, retire this fantasy about honor and old discipline. But if you fire a single gun today, we will finish what your planet started." The bridge went quiet. Holt stepped closer to the screen. "You think we fight for honor, Admiral?" "No. We fight because it's all we have left. You're welcome to test how dead we are." Her smile faded. "Then burn with your world." The signal cut off. Silence. Then the first blast hit like thunder. The outer shield cracked somewhere to starboard. Red dust fell from the vents. The deck jolted. Radios screamed status reports. Kane braced herself against the console. "They're hitting the southern arc. Close internal hatches 1 through 12, Holt ordered.
"I'll bring."
"Bring all rail batteries online. Power to magnetic thrusters." Dust floated in the air, caught in flashes of emergency light. The crew moved fast, drilled into calm motion by years of training. Through the viewport he saw one of their old frigates break formation, engines blazing unevenly. Its captain rammed straight into a Unity gunship. For a second, a fireball bloomed like a second sunrise over Earth's curve. The bridge crew cheered, then went silent when the debris hit the upper atmosphere below. Kane looked to Holt. "That was the Concorde. All hands lost." He nodded once. "They died proving we still matter." Another explosion rolled through the hull. Sparks flew from a console and sprayed across the floor. Power failed, then returned. Holt drew a deep breath. "Activate Iron Blossom," he said. Kane stared at him. "That directive hasn't been touched in decades, I know. That's why they'll never expect it." The old digital display flickered. The symbol of the ancient Earth Defense Corps appeared, a steel circle with a single cut through it like a sword mark. The corridors echoed as automated systems activated deep inside the fortress. From the observation deck, Earth looked unchanged, silent beneath the storm of fire in orbit. But inside the fortress, an old engine roared awake, older than the men and women on board. A command buried long ago was alive again. Kane turned back to Holt, her whisper nearly lost under the alarms. "Sir, are we really doing this?" He glanced once more at the burning horizon. No one laughs at Earth again. Then all lights on the bridge went black. A distant boom shook the deck. The fortress had fired something no one recognized. The fortress shook again. The Iron Blossom device had fired, but no one on the bridge knew what it really was. Some said it was a weapon left from old wars. Others said it was a signal meant to wake every remaining Earth fleet. No one had time to ask. Captain Aaron Holt stood steady while sparks dropped from the ceiling. Air smelled like burnt copper. Warning screens kept flashing red. "Report," Holt said. Lieutenant Nora Kane wiped blood from her cheek. "We lost the outer platform and 3 gun batteries, but the signal went out. It's broadcasting across every remaining relay." "To where?" She checked the screen. "Every system that still has Earth code. Outside, the sky burned white. Unity carrier ships closed in like a steel wall. Their formation was perfect, clean, exact. Every move reminded Holt of what humans had built after leaving Earth. Sons and daughters turning into soldiers who saw their homeworld as nothing but dust. "Prepare for launch," Holt said. "We can't hold Tessera Gate." The crew moved fast. Metal boots pounded down long corridors. Cargo doors opened 2 rows of battered ships. The air trembled with the engine hum of a dozen small cruisers coming alive again. Inside the docking bay, Holt watched his soldiers load ammunition, fuel cells, and food packs. Many were barely 20, their faces marked with grease and fear. Kane joined him. "Evac teams are in position. We can cover half the crew. The rest will have to fight their way out." "Open the decks to volunteers only," Holt said. "No forced boards." "Sir, that's suicide for the ones who stay. They know that." His voice was flat. "That's why they'll stay." She stared at him, then nodded. "Yes, sir." Sudden impact threw both of them to the floor. The walls split open across the bay's edge. A roaring fire burst from the hull. Alarms screamed again. "Launch now!" Holt shouted. Engines blazed. The cruisers broke free from the bay in groups of 3. Some exploded before clearing the blast doors. The rest scattered like sparks in the dark. The view outside turned into chaos. Streaks of plasma, shattered debris, ships twisting through the smoke. Holt grabbed a flight crewman and yelled over the noise. "Is the ship Ariadne prepped?" "Yes, Captain." "Engines ready." "Good. That's our command lock." He pulled Kane toward the docking ramp as another section of the fortress crumbled behind them. Inside Ariadne, everything rattled but still functioned. The cockpit smelled of oil and heat. Pilots strapped in while techs sealed the main glass dome. Kane sat at tactical control and checked the radar. Unity fleet advancing fast. 15 heavies, 20 escorts. Bring us around the debris field near the old defense grid. That field is unstable. Exactly. Engines burst bright. The Ariadne shot away from the collapsing fortress. Outside, the rest of the Earth fleet followed. The debris around Earth was vast, broken satellites, abandoned war machines, old orbital mines. Holt's plan was simple: lose them in the graveyard. The Unity ships chased with their cold precision. Laser grids cut through the dark. Flash tore up wreckage and old metal, lighting the ships like ghosts among bones. Hatch. Under low power, the Ariadne slipped through the wrecks unseen. Inside the dim cabin, everything felt too quiet. Holt moved between stations, checking every line, every silent face. He finally stopped by the old CUM terminal. Static whispered across the channel. He turned the knob, and a voice came through, rough and slow. "This is Outpost Kappa receiving Earth code Iron Blossom." "Say again?" "Identification." Kane froze. "That's a relay from Mars orbit." "Those stations were abandoned years ago." "Apparently not," Holt said. Before he could answer, the radar flashed red. "Incoming signal lock," Kane warned. "Short range. Someone has our exact coordinates." Holt's eyes narrowed. "That fast?" It looked around the bridge. Faces tense. No one moved. "Who sent our position?" he asked. No one spoke. Then the floor shook. A plasma shockwave ripped along the ship's starboard side. Inside, alarms erupted again. Kane shouted, "They're on us!" And Holt, bracing against the console, said the words none of them wanted to hear. "There's a traitor on this ship." The ship Ariadne spun through the burning wrecks. Sparks streaked across the cockpit glass while the engines screamed under strain. The enemy was closing in. Inside, red light filled every corridor. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Captain Aaron Holt held the railing as the deck shook. "Seal all compartments," he ordered. "Lock every external CUM channel. No one talks to anyone outside this ship." Lieutenant Nora Kane worked the radar, her tired eyes locked on the screen. "Unity ships are tracking us perfectly. They're not guessing, they're reading us live." Then someone fed them our trail. Holt looked around the bridge. Find them. The sound of alarms filled the narrow space. Techs checked terminals. Engineers cursed as they tried to reroute power from ruined systems. Holt could feel the tension pushing against his skin like a storm waiting to break. Die. The answer came from security control. "Sir," a young officer shouted, We found a data spike from internal console CA2. It was broadcast 10 minutes ago. Who was on that console? One person. Ensign Cole Marek. Kane turned sharply, handled cum encryption. Holt didn't speak. He walked fast through the smoking corridor, toward communications control. The lighting flickered in broken rhythm. His boots hit the floor like gunfire. He found Marek sitting alone at his station, face pale under the red glow. The young man didn't turn around. Holt said quietly, "They followed our signal. Only one man could send it." Marek's hands shook. "I didn't mean for them to fire. They promised to spare anyone who helped them. You sold the coordinates of your own crew. I thought it was over." Marek said, voice cracking. "We were outnumbered, cornered. I just wanted to live." Holt stepped closer. "Every soldier here wants that, but we don't buy it with someone else's life." He drew his sidearm and held it low. "Give me the codes you sent them." Marek swallowed hard, then typed on the terminal. A string of numbers filled the screen, tagged with Unity encryption. Holt shut the feed down and nodded once. 2 guards came in and restrained the ensign. "Lock him in the brig," Holt said. "No contact with anyone." As they dragged Marek away, the ship shook again. Another barrage slammed their shields. Kane's voice came through the intercom. "They've launched drones, dozens moving through the rocks." Holt ran back to the bridge. Outside the viewport, glowing trails weaved between floating debris. Unity drones slipped forward like blades. Every few seconds one exploded as the Ariadne's guns found a target. But more kept coming. "Power to forward railguns," Holt commanded. "Fire at will. We keep us low between the asteroids." The crew obeyed without hesitation. Gunfire filled the void, but the silence of space broke again and again with each blast. Fragments of destroyed drones spun past in glowing arcs. The Ariadne dodged through shattered rock fields as navigation alarms wailed. Holt took control of the helm himself, forcing the ship between narrow gaps where only a few meters of space remained. The hull scraped metal. The lights flickered again.
Ow.
Kane shouted over the noise, "If we stay here, we'll be torn apart." "Then we make them want to follow," Holt said. He glanced at her. "Heat the hull. Full plasma burn." Her eyes widened. "It'll melt us from the inside. Or it'll hide our signature long enough to fake our destruction." Kane's hands flew across the controls. Power surged. The temperature in the bridge rose fast. Sweat rolled down faces. The glow outside turned white orange. The drone started to lose lock. It crashed into the rocks. Then 4. Holt held the course steady, while the hull screamed under heat. Suddenly, a piercing alarm cut through the bridge. "Breach on deck 7!" a voice yelled. "Drone made it inside!" Automatic gunfire cracked through the comlink. Then silence. Kane looked up. Deck 7 includes the engine bay. Holt unbuckled his harness. "You have command until I return." He grabbed a rifle from the wall and sprinted down the ladder tunnels. Smoke filled the lower decks. The echo of gunfire guided him. At the engine bay door, he saw 2 engineers dead on the floor. Sparks poured from a hole in the ceiling. A drone hung half dead, wires sparking, its optics turning weak red. It was still moving. Holt aimed and fired until it stopped. The room went dark except for the steady pulse of the reactor core. Then he heard a soft beep behind him, a console flashing blue.
Oh.
On the screen was a single command line. Ensign Marek's ID. The code SELF. Override initiated. Holt's eyes widened. "What did you do, Cole?" he whispered. In the brig, Marek sat alone, watching the same code countdown reflect on his glass cell door 5 seconds. Then smiling through tears as the light grew brighter around him. The blinding flash shook the Ariadne from nose to tail. The shockwave roasted the nearest drones and ripped through the asteroid belt like a blade through ice. Every system screamed red, then fell silent. Inside the ship, half the crew was thrown against walls. Metal hissed as the plasma heat faded. Captain Aaron Holt crawled to his feet, ears ringing. Smoke filled the bridge. Screens were cracked but alive. Lieutenant Nora Kane was slumped over the console, her shoulder burned. Holt pulled her upright. "You still with me?" Kane gritted her teeth. Reek's override blew the drone core before it reached our reactor. It fried our backup engines, but he saved us. The captain nodded once. He earned his silence. She looked around. Hull temperature dropping. Surviving ships responding to our beacon. They're asking where to regroup. Send them coordinates to Eidos 9, Holt said. It's an old manufacturing moon. Still has power grids and magnetic fields strong enough to hide us. Kane typed through static.
Oh, they'll think you're planning another charge.
I am. Holt looked at the dark window where debris floated past like ashes. If the Outer Unity wants a final answer from Earth, they can have one. Hours later, the remnants of the Earth fleet gathered in orbit over Eidos 9. The moon's surface was hollowed by old wars and industrial burns. Towers leaned at odd angles, full of dust and shadows. The fleet took refuge inside its magnetic ring. Inside the command bay, technicians patched together new targeting grids, using whatever still worked. Small repair drones moved across the ships like insects mending wounds. Kane limped through the aisle, arms full of cables. The pulse battery is half operational, she reported. We can charge one big EMP shot through the ring. It'll only fire once. That's all we need, Holt said. He looked over the tired faces around him. When the Unity fleet arrives, they'll think this is a ship graveyard. We turn these ruins into a trap. Once their systems die, we finish this up close. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. Close-range combat was suicide against Unity dreadnoughts. Kane broke the silence. We don't have enough pilots for a second run. Then there won't be a second run, Holt said. While engineers prepared the array, Holt checked the forward hangar. The cracked bay doors were open to the dim glow of the moon. Snowy dust drifted across the floor. Rows of old Earth ships waited, patched and rusted. In the corner, a tech unpacked a small crate marked with faded lettering from the old Earth Core's armory. Inside was a ceremonial blade made of compressed light fiber, its power core half dead. Kane walked up behind him. My father trained with these, she said quietly. They called them samurai blades during the First Colony War. Holt took the weapon and switched it on. A pale blue edge hummed to life. Still works. The power cell won't last long, she warned. That's fine. She looked pale. Her bandaged shoulder soaked again with blood. You'll need it more than me. He met her eyes. You should be resting. No time, she smiled faintly. The moment this thing fires, Unity will rain everything they have on us. Someone has to keep the grid stable. Kane, that means staying at the core when it discharges. I know, she said. He frowned but said nothing. When the Unity arrived, the void outside Eidos 9 flared with silver light. Hundreds of ships appeared in perfect rows. Their leader, Admiral Caradorn, transmitted across all bands. Earth forces, surrender, and be treated as relics of your own failure. Holt answered back with only one phrase. Fire the pulse. Inside the moon, the field surged. A blinding wave of electric light expanded outward, silent but unstoppable. Every Unity system within range turned black. Engines cut out, guns went dead. Their fleet froze, drifting helpless. Holt leaned forward, eyes fierce. All ships move in. The Earth fleet charged. Like steel arrows in the dark, they struck. Holes tore, engines burst, fire chained across the sky. But deep inside, Eidos 9, power surged past its limits. Kane struggled to keep the grid together, hands shaking over the controls. The last transmission she sent reached only Holt's screen. It showed her at the core, the light blade resting beside her console. She smiled once before the feed cut to static. Grid overload, a voice called out, panicked, we're losing the moon. Before Holt could respond, the entire surface of Eidos 9 began to crack open, a roar spreading through the cum lines. Then a single word came through the noise. Captain... 8. Holt stared at the exploding horizon as his ship shook apart around him, and the void outside filled with fire. The moon split open. Fire poured out like liquid metal. The shockwave swallowed half the battlefield before anyone could run. Whole ships vanished into the white glare. For a moment, every radar went blank. Then came silence. No comms, no signals, no control, only drifting wrecks, smoke, and static. Captain Aaron Holt woke to the sound of alarms and crackling oxygen lines. The Ariadne was floating crippled, half its hull gone. Gravity was unstable. He coughed, trying to stand. His ears rang. The bridge lights flickered weakly, but he could hear voices on the emergency channel. Secondary fleet, reporting heavy loss. Admiral Dorn's command ship still active. Repeat. She's alive. Holt blinked sweat and blood from his eyes. Say again. She survived, Captain. Her dreadnought is powering up near the equator belt. She's regrouping. He grabbed the railing and looked out through the fractured viewport. The dark curve of Adaz-9 burned below, cracking apart into glowing fragments. Kane's choice had saved them for a few minutes. Nothing more. Bring the main thrusters online, he said. We finish this now. Sir, our engines are cooked. Half the crew's unconscious. Then wake the other half. Holt walked to the command seat, hands shaking. We still have flight systems. Yeah. Redirect all fuel from the weapons. We ram her. The crew stared, silent. Then the engineers began moving. They had no reason to argue. Everyone knew this was the last order. Slowly, the Ariadne lurched forward. Panels hissed. Broken metal scraped across the walls. Through the viewport, the dreadnought came into sight. It's the largest ship ever built by human hands, covered in smoke and battle scars, but still alive, still aiming to crush what little Earth had left. Admiral Doran's voice came through across the channels, cold and sharp despite the static. Holt, you lived through that. I should be impressed. You should be afraid, he said. I don't fear ghosts. Earth is done. Surrender, and I'll spare what's left of your crew. Holt looked at the cracked seat beside him where Kane had always sat. You already took what mattered. Surrender died with her. He switched the comms off. Plasma trails streaked past as a few surviving Earth ships joined the Ariadne, forming up in broken formation. Small, wounded vessels, but still moving. Receiving signals, said a young officer. The other units that went dark, they're reigniting drives. Some from Europa Station, some from the belts. They answered the Iron Blossom code. Holt almost smiled. Then we're not ghosts after all. Inside the dreadnought, Dorn prepared her final volley. Her gunners aligned the plasma banks toward the incoming Ariadne. The difference in size was hopeless. One hit would end Holt's ship, but Holt's fleet didn't slow. Engines burned white. The Ariadne's hull screamed as it pushed past structural limits. The ship had nothing left to give, yet it flew straight toward the enemy like a spear. Dorn's crew fired. The blast tore through space and missed by a breath. Holt's pilot swung the Ariadne under the recoil path and closed in. The distance vanished. 2 kilometers. Holt turned to his crew. For Earth, the communications deck lit with the words streaming out across every surviving channel. For Earth, they shouted, voices shaking the air. The Ariadne struck the dreadnought at full burn. The collision punched deep into the armor, metal tore. Fires ignited through both ships. Holt rose from his seat, the heat rushing through the cabin, pulled Kane's blue light blade from its rack, and walked toward the emergency lift. The lift doors opened to enemy soldiers rushing in panic. Smoke and gunfire filled the narrow halls. Holt cut through them, step by step, moving toward the dreadnought's reactor chamber. Admiral Dorn was waiting there, her command uniform burned, holding a sidearm. Shh, you can't win, she said, pointing the gun. Winning's over, Holt replied. Charged, the two fought among falling beams and roaring fire. No tactics, no speeches, just raw survival. When the reactor chamber cracked open from heat, Holt drove the blade into the core and locked it with his reactor key. The overload began instantly. He looked back once at Dorn, then at the burning steel above him. His voice came through the com feed, calm and steady. When the world laughs, fight for silence. The explosion tore through both ships, turning the battlefield into white fire. Hours later, across the empty system, his message replayed on every open channel, waves drifting through broken satellites and dying stations. On a distant outpost, an Earth soldier heard it through the static. She looked out at the stars, saw hundreds of faint lights moving in formation. The signal was spreading. New ships were answering the call. Somewhere in the silence, the war had just begun again.